Welcome on into All Around the South, hosted by the Cards Companion. New show we're doing, focusing in specifically on SEC and ACC ball throughout the country. I have myself joined with my fabulous co-host, James. First off, happy birthday.
Thank you. Much appreciated. It was a great weekend to have a birthday. It's one of probably the best, most loaded slate we're going to have all year, college football.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, that week 5, it lived up to the hype, in my opinion. And we had some great football on in every single slate.
I completely
And
agree.
especially, what we care about here, massive week in the ACC and the SEC. Before we get into talking about week 5, though, and week 6, it's been a thing on our shows for the past 3 weeks. We talk a lot about firings on here, and we just had a massive firing. So we're recording this on Sunday. It's roughly 2 o'clock. Sam Pittman was just relieved of his duties at Arkansas after Arkansas just gets blown out and embarrassed at home by Notre Dame, a flailing Notre Dame team, might I add. What's your initial takeaways?
This Arkansas team, it's one of those things we was rumored last year, and they kind of were able to fix some things and got to this point. Yes, and you've heard rumblings that there may be some moves coming up, but yesterday there's really no coming back from that. They were embarrassed from kickoff to the end of that game. They lost the game 56-13 against the Notre Dame team that's had issues offensively so far this year, including last week when the defense had issues with Purdue's offense and you were only able to get 13 points. It's concerning that you were able to make C.J. Carr, who's had some trouble adjusting to the college level, look like Leonard last year. A lot of question marks. As we're going to discuss about it, I think they got a great choice as an interim coach. You're going to fix that offense pretty fast, I think.
Some people would say he knows his ways around Fayetteville.
Oh, he was definitely.
No, so the whole Pittman conversation, he turned it around last year, saved himself a little bit, but obviously the beginning of the season has just been atrocious, to be quite honest. And what really ties into all of this is, I think for Sam Pittman, it was never a good choice to hire Bobby Petrino as your offensive coordinator. Honestly, you're putting yourself in a really bad situation there as a head coach. And if you look at this Arkansas offense these first few weeks, man, they're a top 40 unit.
Yeah.
It's been the one bright spot of this team.
The one issue with Arkansas I think it goes with Pittman's firing today. Specifically, like last week when they played Memphis, they were winning the half. They scored, 28 points in the first half? They lose that game 32-31 because they stall out. You've seen that consistently with Arkansas. They come out the half and they just ain't been able to do much out of the half. The one thing you got to say about SEC ball is you got to have to improve, and it had just progressively gotten worse. And Pittman, that's what you said. He was 32-34 in his time in Fayetteville. And that's the issue with it, is he would do good for the first half of the season, the first half of games, that he just couldn't finish. And that's what his tenure at Arkansas is going to be remembered for. He just couldn't finish. He showed that he had it. He just couldn't finish the job.
Well, and what's really, I think what really seals the downfall a lot for Sam Pittman is bringing in Bobby under the circumstances that you have with all the history there in the University of Arkansas. But on top of that, there's been a lot of reports coming out the past few weeks that, hey, Pittman's been making a call to go more conservative in the second half when they get these big leads. So you have Bobby doing the Bobby thing in the first half, and then it getting slowed down, and it's just, you're setting yourself up as a head coach in a very bad situation. Honestly, at the end of the day, I don't know if the Bobby interim changes very much. They still have a very difficult schedule. Their defense does not look particularly good, and it doesn't look acclimated to SEC play, which is a massive issue in and of itself. But it's a massive move, man. And, really, we were talking about this before we came on camera. In my mind, we've had firings. You had your Gundy, you had your Pry, the UCLA, you've had those. But this is the first, really big one, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
This is that one because Arkansas, no disrespect to any of those other 3 schools, Arkansas, while they're not in powerhouse by any means. They are been consistently and traditionally since they've joined the league a very good, consistent team in the SEC. And this is a program where they will spend money to go out and find their guy. And they're going to hire somebody really good. And this just kind of solidifies that you're looking at a really big coaching carousel this offseason. And I'm not going to get into the candidates for Arkansas. This isn't that show. I'm not getting into all that. You got 3 coaches right now that are in serious trouble being in the same position that Sam Pittman's been put in. And that's down in Florida, that's in Lexington, and that's in Auburn. And, there could even be the argument to be made, especially with how things went this past weekend in Baton Rouge. So you could look, there's a possibility here that you could have 3+ SEC jobs open. That's not normal in these hiring cycles. And these are programs that will spend money, at least Arkansas, LSU, Auburn, and Florida. I don't trust Kentucky to spend the money because of the buyout situation with Stoops. But it was very eye-opening to me that, hey, things are happening. And I think this is a new wave of college football where the leash is a little bit shorter now with NIL and with budgets being really pulled as far as they can go and donor power going as far as it can go. There is no more drop-off seasons. The leash has been shortened, and especially if you're at an SEC school.
I completely agree. And I would add, I'd say this will be 4, maybe 5 SEC jobs this carousel. LSU's proven to us even before NIL became a real factor that they have a short leash. Let Orgeron go, 2 seasons after he won a national championship. And Brian Kelly, he's consistently winning 8, 9 games, but that's just not good enough in Baton Rouge. The amount of money they put in that program, the amount of money they put in that team in the spring portal this year is top 10 in the country in amount of money spent. And they brought back a good chunk of that production from last season. You can't accept what happened yesterday. Don't get me wrong, Ole Miss has some players. It was at Ole Miss. It's hard to win in the vault. But you got to improve. And that's the one thing that Brian Kelly's shown since he went in Baton Rouge is it feels like whenever he loses that first one, there's a couple more behind it. So it's going to be interesting to watch how that plays out.
Extremely, because that looked like a team, and we're about to get into our actually talking about football. That looks like a team that could spiral. That is not the team I think we thought it was a few weeks ago. But we'll do the SEC thing first here. Then we'll jump around to the ACC. Kind of talking about some of these SEC games from this past week. First one that I wanted to, the big one, I think it's what is on everybody's mind. Alabama goes down to Athens, and they do that Alabama regular season thing. They win 24-21 against the Dawgs. Interestingly enough, the coaches poll just came out, and Georgia is ranked 10th in the coaches poll, and Alabama is ranked 11th. I don't know how that works out, but that's typical for the coaches poll. My initial takeaway here, man, I think Kirby Smart is one of the best coaches in the country. He runs one of the best programs in the country. So anyway, my initial thoughts about this game, though, James, Kirby Smart, I think he's one of the best coaches in college football. He runs one of the best programs in college football. We always thought Kirby Smart had a Nick Saban problem. He ain't got a Nick Saban problem, brother. You got an Alabama problem.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys, Ty Simpson, it was his best game in an Alabama uniform to date. I believe as of now, he's second in Heisman odds, and he looks like it. That kid looks amazing, might I add. And, just realistically, Bama, they're able to move the ball at will on Georgia, and that's not something that's typical of the Dawgs.
Shout out Caden Proctor bubble screen. If he scored, I would have went crazy.
It was beautiful. It's probably going to be the thumbnail for this video. But, I mean, just the Georgia defense, it don't look like the Georgia defense of old, and it has me a little concerned about Georgia going into, the real SEC play going forward. What about yourself?
So going into the year, I went on an SEC preview, but I talked to you about my concerns about Georgia. I felt like Gunner was a good quarterback, but I didn't feel like he was a very good. I wouldn't consider him a dual threat. He's very run first. It's what we saw last year. We didn't know if that was just because of lack of play with the ones. This year, I think it's furthered that argument. I feel like specifically yesterday, the only plays of over 20 yards Georgia was able to get were on the ground. They really weren't able to stretch the field, and it allowed the D-line to really pin its ears back and just go. And I think that played into the hands of Alabama. And I think that's just who this Georgia team is. And it's concerning because Alabama's proven that you can, if you are willing to set your offensive line and pass pro, you can throw against it. Thomas Castellanos threw for about 200 yards and ran for 100. And he's not the best thrower of the football, as we've seen in the past, but I feel like he's more capable than what Gunner has showed us he can be. I left concerned about Georgia's defense, but at the same time, I'm still concerned about Alabama. I left weirdly thinking both teams weren't as good as I thought they were coming in. I think Alabama's improving though, and we're going to talk about this later on. I don't know what this Georgia team is, since arguably you're looking at a Georgia team that should have 2 losses right now.
No, I think that's the best way to look at it. Alabama, I definitely feel better about them now. We're going to learn a lot about that team over their next 2 games. They have Vanderbilt, which do not sleep on the doors, and then they host Tennessee right after that, which Tennessee looks a little shaky at the moment based off of last week going into Starksville. But a lot to learn about Alabama still. I think they look a little bit better. I'm a little bit cooler on Georgia, to be completely honest with you. Not selling the dogs completely yet, though. Next game down south in SEC country, you had number 4 LSU on the road at Ole Miss. Ole Miss gets the win here. Rebs get the win. The Rebs get the win 24-19, and that was a ball game. I mean, that's the nicest thing I have to say. You know, Ole Miss, they came in and Ole Miss treated that like the most important game on their schedule, because arguably I think it is. LSU did not look prepared in that game.
If you look at the analytics of Ole Miss's schedule, it's very front heavy in the way it was built. I feel like they're the odds-on favorite to make the SEC championship now because they avoid all the other top 4 teams in the SEC West. This was the big hurdle they really had to get over because Ole Miss under Lane Kiffin. Last year it was Kentucky. Year before that, yeah, I think who was it? It was Arkansas or somebody week 4 or 5. They've stumbled in games they shouldn't have stumbled on, and they've lost one that was a toss-up later in the year. And 2 losses in the SEC usually knocks you out. So this is a big one for them. It gives them a little bit of a breather since they got Alabama and Georgia both already with 1 loss. Alabama not in the conference. Georgia, yeah. We'll talk more about them later on. But this Ole Miss team, and the thing is, we went into the year Austin Simmons could win Heisman. Austin Simmons has been hurt. Ferris State transfers come in, and he's proven why he was the D2 Heisman winner.
Fly that Trinidad flag, brother.
He's got that job, and here's my thing. When Austin gets the full green light, how do you make reasoning with benching Trinidad?
I don't think you can, because he's playing so well right now, and the fan base is buying into him. It's just that's a situation. Ole Miss, hey man, I'm not just saying this. Ole Miss looks like a top 5 team right now. They're clicking. They're on the fast track in the SEC. Watch out for the Rebs, because Lane Kiffin could have something really special here. We've talked a lot about Ole Miss, though. There's a lot to say about LSU. There's a lot. Brian Kelly can't run the ball. It's not in his playbook. He can't do it. And that's concerning, man. You got to be able to close out these games. You got to be able to compete in these games. And this is the consistent thing with Brian Kelly, where, hey, you know, we're going to beat an Alabama here and there, but 3 times out of 4, we're going to lose this big game. And that's what we see. I give Ole Miss a lot of credit. I think going into this game, I thought LSU had one of the best offenses in the country. I think Garrett Nussmeier is one of the better quarterbacks in the country. But Ole Miss, they were able to send consistent pressure, and they were able to make Nussmeier so uncomfortable in that pocket where he was having such of a hard time delivering balls. And I think that's the way that teams are going to see this film, and that's how they're going to attack LSU for the rest of the season.
And that's what's hindered Brian Kelly even whenever he was at Notre Dame, is his stubbornness and his refusal to adjust. because Ole Miss didn't change what they were doing in the first quarter to the fourth. It wasn't like they were sitting different stunts. It was the same pressure, the same simulated pressure with a shell on the backside. And it, I don't know how much to put on the player or the coach. Because the player you just call what the coach calls. And the coach
Mhm.
kept these long, drawn out play action passes instead of getting it to those burners you got on the outside. Get it out fast, let them go, and try to make them miss because you got some real speed on the outside in LSU. As I've said multiple times in the past few weeks, they probably had the best quartet of wide receivers in the country, and it feels like the play calling doesn't play to that.
No, it doesn't. And like I said at the top of the show, man, this loss would concern me so much if I'm an LSU fan because that feels like a loss that can affect you a lot throughout the season. And I think there's a lot of good tape out on LSU now. Other than that, though, any other games you want to look back on from Week 5? Anything massive in the
We've
conference?
touched on this. I think it plays off of the Alabama Georgia game. And like I said, Georgia should be a 2-loss team right now. The team that they should have lost to is involved in this game. So Tennessee went down to Stark Vegas. Tennessee's defense is a very big problem. Last year they kind of rode the back of their defense and running game. This year it's kind of a weird mix because their defense is allowing over 28 points a game in SEC play so far. Offensively, they're looking more like more run pass option kind of offense rather than a straight run, which is better than what they were last year. But the only issue, I don't think they had the weapons they had on the outside they had last year.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
they're able to get through. Don't get me wrong, I still think they had Georgia beat. That was fully a situation where they had the game won and they managed to lose it. But that Tennessee team, it's very concerning. As Mississippi State, I think it's a good SEC team. I don't think they're great. That's why,
See, I kind of disagree with you there. I don't think Mississippi State's that good.
yeah. That's
I
the
just
thing, though. I feel like the SEC and ACC, as we'll touch on, such a log jam. It's so weird in college football
mhm.
currently. As I think there's 3 or 4 teams you could say legitimately are top 5 teams, and then it's everybody from like 5 to 30 that at any given game could beat the other.
Yeah.
But after that, it
No,
falls off.
absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree, and you see it's the big conferences. It's just these massively big conferences, man. There's not enough cross data amongst the conferences, let alone interconference as well. Uh, but other than that, though, I think that'll round us up on Week 5 for the SEC. You had the 2 big games. You had a lot of stuff going on in between. If you're going to an SEC game, do me a favor, watch out for balls being thrown at you because that's a thing apparently now. Um, Moving on to the ACC, though, let's start it up on Friday night. You have the Florida State Seminoles on the road at Virginia. They lose the game, man. They lose the game. Florida State puts up 38. Virginia puts up 46. My initial question for you is this game more about Virginia or more about Florida State?
So I've actually messaged you about this. Us and the boys were talking about it. Because we were talking about looking ahead to another show we got coming out this week. Louisville obviously plays Virginia this week. So we were talking about our opinion on Virginia. And I said, I don't think this game's as much of a testament to Virginia as it is Florida State. I feel like Virginia was a team that we knew was going to throw us some weird things at them. You got a home game, primetime slot. You're wearing your throwbacks. You knew the place was going to be packed. So you knew they were going to give everything they had. They were going to give the JMU type of thing from North Carolina last year. Whenever they're going for it on every fourth down, they were going to do whatever they had to. And the issue with it that I saw with Florida State is their inability to get off the field on third down. They really struggled with mesh concepts, and they consistently were not being able to cover the read option. And Chandler Morris isn't the fastest quarterback in the world, but he knows how not to make the game-ending mistake, or at least he did Friday night. Um, if you and I've told other people this, Thomas Castellanos has improved drastically since he was at Boston College, and we've seen that so far this year at Florida State. But the wow factor that you saw Alabama have when they saw Thomas Castellanos wasn't going to be there when he played the ACC team. because they've seen him for 3 years. They knew what he was. They knew how to prepare for him. It's not you're going to have a special practice. You know how to prepare for Thomas Castellanos. So this was the first time you're going to see a team that has seen him, knows how to prepare, that doesn't have to change their normal practice. And it's concerning that they struggled so much through the first quarter and second half to be able to score. They scored 21 of their 28 points in the second quarter.
I mean, I'll just be very honest with you. Majority of their offense is Castellanos throwing the ball up because screw it, Deuce Robinson is open down there.
Mm-hmm. I think he had over 100 yards.
Oh yeah, he had a great game. That kid's a stud, man. That kid is an absolute stud. Florida State, they made a very good choice getting him in the portal. A shame another team couldn't get him with their former quarterback. But the one thing I will say about FSU, I didn't realize how bad their run defense is.
Well, the thing about with Alabama, when they played Alabama, Alabama's top 2 running backs were both out. So Alabama was on their 3s and 4s, and Alabama still ran for over 60 yards against a front that a lot of Florida State fans will say is a really good front, but you saw Virginia, they were getting 5-6 yards per carry anytime they handed the ball off.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of that was after first contact also, which is very concerning for the Seminoles.
And that was that was the issues they had last year was hand tackles. They weren't able to finish the tackle, and that's a big reason why they lost that Memphis game last year at home.
Mm-hmm. Last little thing about this game, I feel like it's impossible to talk about this game without bringing it up. I'm not an old guy. I'm not an old crotchety guy. I don't care if he's storming the field. In that situation, though, that should never happen in college football. What happened after that football game?
Squirrel didn't even have time to get on his feet before they were on top of him.
No, that is completely unacceptable from the University of Virginia to allow those students to line up like that. I get it. It is one of those fields where there's like a natural concourse that goes down to the field, but you have to have better security parameters because I believe I saw 13 people were injured.
I think it said 18. I think 13 were actually
18.
hospitalized. I know they had the pepper spray because of the situation. It's one of those field storming, court storming. There's always that little taboo about when's it okay? Is it okay? I thought we had it figured out last year when we said there has to be like a time interval to allow the other team to get off the field. This Friday was ridiculous. That was a mess. And there was genuine concern for me for the Florida State players, just because of how I think they said over 1,000 people were on the field within like seconds.
Yeah, Virginia. I know you guys aren't a very big football thing, but take football a little more seriously and hire some more security. That was really shitty of me to say.
It's the truth, though. Like I was genuinely.
It is.
Like Squirrel was on the ground, and you see everybody running right on top of him.
Well, it's like my initial reaction to it, and we're gonna get off this topic because it's been talked to death. My initial reaction to it, though, was like, "Holy crap, this is like a basketball court storming thing. Like this is what this situation is." And
like,
basketball court storming.
You're a basketball school.
Well, yeah, it's like with the basketball court storming, the amount of people that were on the field in the first minute for the football game, that's the total amount of people in a basketball stadium.
Yeah.
You're getting maybe 100 kids on a basketball court. A lot less people, a lot smaller space. I get it, but like it just can't happen. And I know the ACC won't do anything about it, but the ACC, they have to get that figured out. Because something to note, Missouri has a very similar field to Virginia with that concourse. If that happened at Missouri to like, let's say in Alabama or at Georgia, the SEC would bring down fire and brimstone from Birmingham onto Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you cannot allow safety issues like that. But that's going to do enough for the Virginia. We're going to check out our video later this week about the Louisville, Virginia game. We'll talk more about UVA later on in there. Moving around, though, with the conference, kind of a really surprising game for me. Virginia Tech goes on the road to North Carolina State. They win 23-21 right after the firing of Brent Pry. because that game is someone else now on the fire watch.
Dave Doran, I don't know what's going on with NC State. That's a team that 1 week they can look like they could be upper half in the conference, then the next week they lose to a team that got beat by 30 by Old Dominion. Like you don't know how to feel about this NC State team. The consistency has become an issue over the course of the last 3 years. Full credit to Virginia Tech. They rallied behind the interim and were able to show up, and they were actually able to play some pretty good defense compared to what they have so far this year. And that they might be a lot better situation now than what they were a week ago.
They could be. What I really like to see from Virginia Tech is Terrion Stewart. He kind of just really proved that Virginia Tech offense, it's not just the drone show, and maybe that is because of an interim coach and a different change in philosophy or whatever. But this was one that just really surprised me. And if Dave goes, that is a staple of the ACC as a conference. And I think it's getting to that point, honestly.
Oh, I completely agree. Another weird one. Go ahead. Go ahead and finish.
No, you go. You go.
Another
you go.
Another weird one in the conference. So Georgia Tech, everybody thought they might not lose a game in the conference all year. They go to Wake, and there's some controversy around this game as there is an uncalled offsides penalty on 3rd and 5.
There was a lot of ref ball. A lot of ACC officials in this game.
With a minute 40 left. I get the Wake Forest team, let's be honest, they don't look very good. They look like a bottom tier team in the conference. But that offsides is called. Wake Forest is kneeling and winning that game 23-20. It doesn't get called. Georgia Tech gets the ball back. They're able to drive down the field, kick their field goal, and they do what Georgia Tech does. They give the ball to Haynes King, and he puts them in the end zone. And they're able to escape Wake Forest 30-29.
Well, it's like you and I believe it was last week you and I were having the Georgia Tech conversation, and we both brought up the fact that we're not very confident in the consistency of Georgia Tech. This kind of proves all of that. Georgia Tech, they're too over-reliant on Haynes King.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest – no, it's not sustainable. That was my biggest takeaway from this Wake Forest game was I was watching the offense, and I'm like, man, what is going on? On top of that, the Georgia Tech defense is not very good.
It reminds me
the run.
It reminds me a lot of last year's Georgia Tech team. But last year they had those two big wide receivers on the outside, and they had the game for the running backs. But now they don't run the ball much for the running backs. It's more read option, Haynes King up the middle.
Yeah, and it's not I think it's great what Georgia Tech has done throughout the season. I think obviously as the year goes on, that Clemson game is going to look less and less impressive. But just this Georgia Tech squad, this does not look like consistent winning football, I guess is the way to put it. I just don't think they have the horses, and especially on the defense. Especially there, man. Their their run defense gives Florida State a run for its money because it does not look good.
That last touchdown Wake Forest had in overtime, that was awful. You had him wrapped up in the backfield, and you were allowed him to get free. And that was a Wake Forest rushing offense that's had issues. They've been more of a passing offense, as we saw when they played NC State, but they were able to run the ball on you all day long.
And this isn't all about Georgia Tech, by the way. A lot of shout-outs to Wake Forest. I don't think they're dead. They're not dead like we thought they were. I think they're competent enough to where, they might mess around and win a few league games here because it looks like they can. They can hang with Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And then final game, we'll move on. We're going to talk just a little bit about this. Check out the other show if you want the full breakdown. Big one in the conference. Louisville beats Pitt 34-27. This was a game, trying not to get too much into it because I know the host of the show, a lot of ACC officiating, in my opinion. A lot of ACC officiating. Louisville got a lot of really, really, really nice breaks.
Mm-hmm.
With that all being said, though, this game does kind of prove to me a little bit about Louisville that they deserve to be in that top 4 conversation in the league right now. That defense, that looks like one of the best defenses in the country, or not in the country, in the ACC, which is not something I think Louisville fans were expecting to be saying. On top of that, the offense looks rougher than anticipated. So this is a completely different style from a Jeff Brom team. And, obviously now Louisville, they're going to have to play Miami. They have SMU. They have Clemson. The latter two, we don't fully know what they are, but they don't look very good. Louisville could have an opportunity here to where they could get some quality wins and really be looking at a very outside shot of the conference championship.
So this game was odd. The whole week it was who's going to play? Are we going to have running backs? Is Colin Lacey going to be the only running back? Is Desmond Reed going to play? Do they have wide receivers? Who's going to play for either team? You end up with a very odd style from Louisville. They didn't run the ball very well due to having some banged up backs in the backfield. Louisville has some issues with the blitz rate of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's linebackers really were the story of that first quarter whenever they were able to jump up 17-0. The adjustments that you were able to see from Louisville show some promise toward what could come. Okay, I think after this week and after this game, you're able to see a more clear picture of the top half of the conference. I think you confidently say Louisville's top 5 at this point. You've seen enough to be able to say that. You know Miami's there. Florida State, you still says it's there. Virginia's that weird team that's hanging out like 6 or 7. Might be there. You don't know. Still some questions to be asked. I think you're going to find out a little bit more here in the next couple weeks. A lot of good ACC.
Yeah, just two last things I want to hit on from that Louisville Pitt game. Pat Narduzzi, my goodness, we're having the same conversation about him that we're having about Dave Doran. I think he's done after the season, if not midway through the season. The second half that he called, that was Mario Cristobal-esque style of game management.
I do want to say positive for Pittsburgh before we leave this game. The Gonzalez kid they got, I think he's a freshman. He looks like he could be a ball player.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up. I think that might be the situation to go to for Pitt. I think Pitt has the horses where they can win a few ACC games here. Like I'm confident in saying Pitt is not as bad as they have looked throughout the season. But that's a backbreaking loss to Louisville. That could, it can go either way. But Narduzzi, if it goes the wrong way, I don't think he's going to be in Acrisure very much longer. So moving on, let's look forward a little bit to Week 6. Week 6, kind of a down week for the SEC, in my opinion. Really, your best game is Vandy at Bama. Outside of that, a lot of guys are on buys. Just kind of the way the schedule worked out, though. But College game day going to T-Town for Vanderbilt versus Alabama. What's your initial thoughts? Who are you taking?
Alabama's coming off a game. This screams trap game to me. It just does. It's like a game. Vanderbilt been coming off a game against Utah State. They've been looking forward to this game. I think Alabama wins this game because I don't think Vanderbilt defense is very good. And I think Alabama's going to be able to get the wide receivers involved early. Vanderbilt, I think it's closer than people think. I think people are going to think that Alabama's going to come out and win by 30 because of what happened in Nashville last year. I think it's one of those games that's one possession in the third quarter. I think Alabama wins by like 10 to 13 points.
So I'm taking the Tide here. And what I'll say is, Kalen DeBoer, you have a lot of really good will built up right now. If you lose this game, though, brother, it all goes away. But I don't think they do. I think Bama does win. I think they win by at least 2 scores, to be honest. I think something kind of clicked in that roster, I think something kind of clicked in that locker room this past week down in Athens where they figured out, hey, we can throw the ball really, really well. And this Ty Simpson kid we got, he's a really good quarterback. And I think Bama does that. I think Ty Simpson honestly goes for 400 plus in this game, and I think he really propels himself to the front of that Heisman conversation. No disrespect to Vanderbilt, I just don't think they have the horses to keep up on defense. This game being in Tuscaloosa, completely different environment. That is the most hard stadium to play at in college football. I will die on that hill, and I think Bama gets it done pretty convincingly, might I add. Bump around, though, we'll go down to the ACC, the big matchup there. We have Miami traveling to Florida State. That game doesn't look as cute anymore as it did last week, but it's still a very important matchup for the league. This will be, the most high-profile game probably all season for the league. I don't think Louisville will be ranked near that top 15 when they go down to Miami. Truthfully speaking here, very truthfully speaking, I think that Miami has probably the best offensive line and defensive line combined in the country. I think they have like a legitimate top 5 defensive line unit, and they have like a legitimate top 10 offensive line unit. They
We
are
just had a
very, very
fire.
solid.
We had a coach firing. The coordinator, though, Todd Grantham, has been let go by Oklahoma State.
It always comes back. It always comes back, man. Hey, RIP Thurden Grantham, baby. We had a couple of really good few years. All right. Yeah, so Miami, I think they have really good line of scrimmage play. I think Beck is playing much better than we all anticipated. I still have a few question marks on the outside for them. With all that being said, you're playing Florida State. Their defense, I can't hit on enough. I don't think their defense looks very good. I don't think they're going to be able to stop Miami. I think that Miami goes up. I'm sorry, to Doak. I think Miami gets the job done, and it will be a close game. It's going to be a chippy game. It's one of those rivalry setups, but I think Miami wins by maybe about a touchdown here.
So, we've touched on it. I don't think Florida State's defense is that great. I think if you're able to sit back and more like a cover 2 look, you're able to kind of, in a spy, you can kind of handle Castellanos. Miami's seen Castellanos before. It's a similar issue to what they saw against Virginia, but it's going to be in Doak. And I feel like everything tells you Miami wins this game. That's why I'm taking Florida State. I think Florida State's going to come out, and I feel like they're going to make it a point to prove to you that they can run the ball. And I think they're going to limit the amount Miami's on the field. I do think Miami scores, and they score a lot. But I think that limiting the possession and controlling the clock is going to be how Florida State wins this game. And I think they win at a score similar to 27-24.
Hey, man, that would shake up the league if Miami loses this game. Final little game I want to talk about in ACC land. Also for the ACC, not a super great slate this week. Just being very brutally honest there. Week 6 is not as fun as week 5. They all can't be great weeks. Then it wouldn't be special. This game, I'm not just picking this because this is a Louisville page. I want to make that very clear. That's Virginia traveling to U of L. The reason I want to preview this game, I think there's a very real argument to be made that these are 2 top 5 teams in the ACC at this point in time. And if Virginia wins this game, they're on the inside track for the conference championship. If Louisville wins this game, they're still fighting for, that lie to the championship game. A lot of questions about Virginia. How legit are they? You lose to North Carolina State, but yet you beat Florida State. Just a lot of questions there. Louisville, you feel a little more confident about who they are, but you still haven't seen them play complete 4 quarters of football. This is one of those games that is going to be a big betting game. Louisville opens the game at a 7-point favorite, but Virginia's ranked. And typically when people see that, they like to bet it a lot. Keeping it brief, if you want to see the full breakdown, watch our other video. I can't stress that enough for anything Louisville related on this show. Keeping it very brief, though, I think Louisville wins, and I think they win by about 10 points.
So this is a fun one. I think you're going to see Louisville's running backs be a little bit healthier in this one. I'm interested to see how Chandler Morris from Virginia scheme up against Ron English's defense. We'll touch on this game a lot more, so I want to be very brief. I think Louisville, one of the betting sites I had was 6.5 on an open. I think Louisville covers. I think that they found something in that second half specifically, and utilizing the tight ends in the pass game. Getting Keritsky back allows them a little bit more time with his ability to block. And they've had consistency issues all year, as you touched on. And this screams trap game. You're coming off your biggest game of the year in Florida State, and that's how Virginia treated that game. And you get a long week. You get 8 days between Florida State and Louisville. I feel like it just creates a game where hopefully Louisville's able to figure it out. That's the homer in me. But relatively, just as a football fan, I think Louisville has the better team on paper, and I think they have a coaching advantage.
Yep. Well, that wraps up week 5. Looking forward to week 6 a little bit. As always, I know this is a little bit of a longer show. Thank you guys so much for, giving us your patronage. We really do appreciate it. We're trying some new styles of content, so if you like it, give us a shout out. Let us know. Please like, share, subscribe, all of that great stuff. This is done for the fans, for you guys, so please let us know what y'all think. Other than that, we'll catch you all later on this week, talking a little bit Louisville, Virginia, more in depth, kind of reviewing the Pittsburgh Louisville thing. We got some great U of L centric recruiting videos going to come out this week as well, so check those out. And we will catch you guys later.